I still remember the day I found him, half buried in mud, ribs showing through a coat that had once been golden, eyes so dull they looked almost made of glass. It was one of those gray March mornings that hang heavy in the sky, when the air smells like rain and old earth, and the world feels forgotten. I wasn't supposed to drive down that dirt road near Willow Creek that day. I'd taken the wrong turn, chasing silence more than direction, just trying to quiet the noise in my head. My life had been falling apart piece by piece. Divorce papers waiting on my kitchen table, a job I'd stopped caring about, and a heart that felt like an empty stall. But sometimes the wrong road takes you exactly where you're meant to be. That's when I saw him, a motionless shape by the fence line, something in the corner of my eye that didn't belong. I slowed the truck, squinting through the mist, and then I saw the flicker of movement, barely a breath, barely a life. A horse tied to a splintered post, standing in mud so deep it swallowed his hooves. When I got out, the wind hit me like a wall of ice, but it wasn't the cold that made me shiver. It was him. His bones jutted out like fragile sticks under his skin, every rib carving a line of suffering across his body. He didn't flinch when I approached, didn't even blink, just stared straight ahead, as if he'd already accepted his fate. There was a rope cutting into his neck, and flies buzzed where the wounds had gone raw. His breath rattled in his chest like broken machinery. I remember whispering, "Hey, easy now. I'm not here to hurt you." He didn't believe me. Why would he? Humans had been nothing but pain to him. Still, I took one slow step closer, then another until I could touch the rope. The moment I untied it, he didn't move. He just stood there like he didn't know he was free. I saw it in his eyes, that strange mix of fear and surrender, and I swear I could feel it in my own chest. That was the moment I decided. I wasn't leaving him there. The vet said he wouldn't last the week. Malnourished. Starved beyond reason. Infection in both legs, she said, shaking her head. You'll break your heart trying to save him. I smiled weakly. Then let it break, I said. I named him Chance because that's what neither of us really had, but I was going to give him one anyway. The next few days felt like a battle fought in slow motion. Every morning I'd wake up before dawn, praying he'd still be breathing. I'd wrap his legs, clean his wounds, and sit in the barn reading out loud just to fill the silence. He wouldn't eat. Wouldn't even look at me. He stood there like a ghost, trapped between life and whatever comes after. But something told me to keep talking, to keep showing up. Because maybe sometimes the thing that saves you isn't medicine. It's consistency. It's someone showing up when no one else does. On the 5th night, the barn was quiet, except for the soft hum of the radio. I was half asleep on a hay bale when I heard it, a low, trembling sound. A whinny. I looked up and he was staring at me, ears forward for the first time. It was like a spark had flickered back to life inside him. I stood, grabbed a handful of hay, and this time he took it. Just a few bites, but it was enough to make me believe. From that night on, I wasn't just fighting for him. I was fighting with him. Days turned to weeks. Chance started eating, then walking, then following me around the barn like he'd always belonged there. The first time he let me touch his face without flinching, I cried like a fool. It wasn't just him healing, it was me. Every time I brushed his mane, I felt something inside me smooth out too. Every soft nudge from his nose reminded me that love doesn't ask questions. It just stays. I'd sit on the fence in the early mornings, coffee steaming in my hands, watching the fog drift over the pasture as he grazed. I'd lost so much before him, my marriage, my faith, my direction, but somehow this half-broken creature was piecing me back together. Then one afternoon, a truck pulled into the drive. A man stepped out, tall, lean, with the kind of polished boots that had never known mud. He said he was Chance's original owner. My stomach sank. He showed me papers, photos, and a grin that didn't reach his eyes. That horse was wild, he said. Kicked 2 handlers. Cost me more than he was worth. Couldn't even be sold. I asked him what he did then, though I already knew the answer. He shrugged. Left him where he belonged. The words hit harder than a punch. But the law was the law. Chance was still his property. I tried to reason, to bargain, but he just smirked. Enjoy your time with him, he said. I'll be back next week. That night I sat in the barn for hours, the rain pouring through the gaps in the roof, dripping rhythmically like a slow-beating clock. Chance stood quietly, his head resting over the stall door, watching me with those endless eyes. "They'll take you back," I whispered. "And I can't let that happen." My chest tightened at the thought. I'd promised him he'd never be left again, and I meant it. I didn't know how, but I wasn't going to lose him. Sleep never came. By dawn, my decision was made. I drove to that man's ranch, heart pounding like thunder. He opened the door, half amused. I said, "I'm buying the horse." "Name your price," he laughed. "He's worthless." "Then you won't mind letting me pay too much for him," I said. Maybe it was the desperation in my voice, or maybe he just wanted me gone. But after a long silence, he muttered, "Fine, he's yours." I handed him the check, my hand shaking, and drove straight home. When I opened the trailer gate, Chance hesitated. For a second, I thought he didn't understand what freedom meant. Then, without warning, he bolted, straight into the pasture, muscles rippling under the morning sun, mane catching light like wildfire. He galloped in wide circles, kicking up dirt, whinnying so loud it echoed through the valley. It was the sound of a soul remembering itself. I stood there, tears streaming down my face, because in that moment I realized I hadn't just saved him. He'd saved me too. The months that followed were filled with small miracles. Chance learned to trust strangers, to let children feed him apples from their tiny hands. The barn that had once felt empty became a sanctuary. Neighbors dropped by, curious about the miracle horse. Some stayed, volunteering to help. Others brought blankets or hay. Before long, we had our first rescue mare, then another. Chance would always greet them first, lowering his head as if to tell them they were safe now. He'd walk beside them when they were nervous, stand near when they were scared. He wasn't just a survivor, he was a teacher. One evening, about a year after that first day, I stood by the fence watching the sun drop behind the hills. Chance was grazing near the edge of the field, tail swishing lazily. A little girl from the neighborhood, Lily, walked up beside me. "Is it true he almost died?" she asked, eyes wide. I nodded. "He did die," I said softly. "But not all deaths are permanent. Some hearts just need a reason to start again." She smiled and ran to him, giggling as he lowered his head for her to pet him. I couldn't help but think how close that horse had come to being a forgotten story. Now he was rewriting his own ending. 3 years later, Chance is the heartbeat of this ranch. We call it the Haven, though truthfully he built it more than I did. Veterans come here for therapy. Children with disabilities ride him gently through the fields, and every single person who meets him walks away changed. Sometimes when the wind shifts just right, I can still hear the faint sound of that first day, the quiet whisper that told me to look left, and I realized that maybe I didn't find him by accident. Maybe I was the one who was lost and he was the one who showed me the way back. He still has scars. Some you can see, others you just feel, but they don't define him anymore. They tell his story. When he runs across the pasture now, mane flying, hooves pounding the earth like thunder, there's something holy in it, something that says pain ends, freedom begins. And every time I watch him, I remember that healing isn't a straight line. It's trust rebuilt one breath at a time, love given without expectation, and faith that even what's broken beyond repair can be whole again. Maybe you have your own Chance out there, something or someone the world gave up on. Don't turn away, because sometimes saving a life starts with simply showing up. I showed up for a dying horse, but in truth, he showed up for me. And now whenever I hear the wind through the fields at night, I swear it sounds like hooves. Steady, strong, alive. A reminder that even the horse they left to die learned to run again. And so can we. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Because somewhere out there, another soul is still waiting for their one-horse story.